In the small town of Millbrook, Iowa, where time seemed to stretch endlessly and days blended into one another with a comforting monotony, lived Robert Miller. Each evening as the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across his modest workshop, Robert would find himself caught in a ritual that had become second nature over the years. With practiced ease, he wiped the grease from his hands onto an old rag, leaving dark smudges against his calloused skin, a testament to another day spent among the whirring gears and humming engines of half-dismantled machines. The setting sun painted the workshop in hues of amber, its golden rays glinting off chrome parts scattered across his workbench. It was a sight both familiar and soothing, a visual symphony of light and metal that never failed to stir a quiet pride within him. Glancing at the clock, 6:30 p.m., another day done, he locked up the garage, stepping out into the serene embrace of Millbrook's quiet streets. These streets, lined with quaint houses and dotted with familiar faces, were as much a part of Robert as the tools he wielded daily. He nodded absent-mindedly to Mrs. Thompson, who was watering her prized petunias, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the muted tones of the evening. The routine, so ingrained in his life, barely registered as conscious thought anymore. Above Gus's hardware store, nestled in a cozy apartment accessed by creaky wooden stairs that groaned under his weight, awaited Robert's sanctuary. Inside, the air hung thick with the mingling scents of motor oil clinging to his clothes and the lingering aroma of last night's pizza. His eyes fell on the calendar hanging slightly askew on the wall, July 15, 2024, just another day indistinguishable from the last. As Robert showered quickly, trading grease-stained coveralls for a plain t-shirt and jeans, his mind wandered aimlessly, seeking something, anything, to break the predictable pattern of his existence. On this particular evening, it was a flyer on the fridge that caught his eye, Annual Millbrook Flea Market tonight. Why not? He muttered to himself, grabbing his keys. Perhaps he'd find some old car parts to tinker with, a small spark to ignite a flicker of excitement in his otherwise uneventful life. The town square buzzed with an energy that stood in stark contrast to its usual sleepy demeanor. Folding tables groaned under the weight of knickknacks and second-hand treasures, each stall a kaleidoscope of color and history. As Robert wandered aimlessly through the throng of people, his fingers trailed over dusty book spines and tarnished silverware, searching for nothing in particular yet hoping to stumble upon something intriguing. "Anything catch your eye, son?" a gravelly voice startled him. Turning around, Robert found himself face to face with an elderly man whose wrinkled visage nearly disappeared beneath a scraggly white beard. "Just browsing," Robert replied with a casual shrug. The old man's eyes twinkled mischievously. "Perhaps you simply haven't found what you're truly looking for yet," he suggested mysteriously. Reaching beneath his table, the man produced a bottle that shimmered with an otherworldly glow in the fading daylight. Robert's breath caught in his throat, the bottle gleamed with an impossible array of shifting colors, its surface etched with intricate patterns unfamiliar to any language he knew. "What is it?" Robert asked, unable to tear his gaze away. The old man chuckled softly, his voice tinged with amusement. "Oh, just an old curio. But she's been waiting for you, I think." Robert's brow furrowed in confusion. "Waiting for me? What do you mean?" "Some things choose their owners, boy," the man explained cryptically. Holding out the bottle, he added, "This one's had its eye on you since you walked in. $20 if you want it." Robert hesitated, his practical nature warring with an inexplicable pull towards the enigmatic object. "I don't know. Trust me," the old man winked knowingly. "You won't regret it." Before Robert could second-guess himself further, he found his hand reaching into his pocket, extracting a crumpled $20 bill. The bottle felt unexpectedly warm in his grasp as he accepted it. "Enjoy," the old man said with a cryptic smile. When Robert looked up to ask another question, the entire stall had vanished, leaving only an empty space between a table of hand-knitted scarves and a display of vintage records. Disoriented, he glanced down at the bottle, half expecting it to have disappeared as well. But there it remained, pulsing with an ethereal glow that promised mysteries untold. The walk home passed in a daze, the bottle a comforting yet enigmatic presence in Robert's jacket pocket. Once inside his apartment, he placed it carefully on the kitchen counter, turning on the harsh fluorescent light above. Under this artificial glow, the colors swirling within the glass seemed even more vibrant, hypnotically dancing across its surface. Intrigued, Robert ran his fingers over the strange symbols etched into the bottle, their designs resembling intricate constellations rather than any alphabet he recognized. As he traced one particularly elaborate design, a jolt of static electricity sparked beneath his fingertip. Ouch! Robert jerked his hand back reflexively, the bottle wobbling precariously. Lunging forward to catch it, his palm connected with the smooth glass, and suddenly, the top flew off with a resounding pop. A blinding light erupted from the bottle's mouth, filling the small kitchen. Stumbling backward, Robert shielded his eyes, heart pounding wildly as the glow finally subsided. When he lowered his arm, blinking furiously to clear the spots from his vision, what he saw made his stomach churn with disbelief. Floating a few inches above his linoleum floor was a being unlike anything he had ever imagined. Her skin shimmered with an electric blue luminescence, as if billions of tiny stars danced just beneath the surface. Cascading white hair floated around her face, defying gravity, while her eyes appeared as infinite pools of swirling galaxies. Robert's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, his brain struggling to process the impossible sight before him. The being tilted her head, regarding him with curiosity. When she spoke, her voice resonated with harmonics that sent shivers down Robert's spine. "I am Sophia," she announced, her lips not quite syncing with the words. "You have awakened me from my slumber, mortal. By the ancient cosmic laws, I am bound to grant you 3 wishes." Robert stumbled backward until his back hit the refrigerator, a cascade of takeout menus and unpaid bills flooding to the floor. What?" he stammered, his thoughts a chaotic whirlwind. Sophia's brow furrowed slightly. "Have I used the incorrect language? My translation matrix may need calibration." She waved a hand, and suddenly, Robert felt a tingling sensation in his ears. To his amazement, her words now matched the movement of her mouth perfectly. Yes," Robert managed, still grappling with shock. "But who are you? What are you?" A hint of amusement flickered across Sophia's ethereal features. "I am a quantum djinn, a being of energy and possibility. Your kind might call me a genie, though that term lacks nuance." Robert's mind reeled, grasping for some semblance of logic. "But genies aren't real, this can't be happening." Sophia raised an eyebrow, the gesture oddly human. "And yet, here I am. Your disbelief, while understandable, does not negate my existence." Running a hand through his hair, Robert tried to steady his racing thoughts. Okay. Let's say, hypothetically, that you are real. You mentioned wishes?" Sophia nodded. 3 wishes to be precise. It is the cosmic bargain, freedom in exchange for wish fulfillment. Robert's mind raced with possibilities, unlimited wealth, superpowers, the ability to fix any machine with a touch. Yet, a lifetime of small-town practicality held him back. This was too good to be true. There had to be a catch. "What's the fine print?" he asked, crossing his arms. "There are always strings attached in stories like this." Sophia's lips quirked in what might have been approval. "Clever mortal. There are indeed limitations. I cannot bring back the dead, force love, or directly cause harm. Beyond that, the possibilities are vast but often unpredictable. Wishes have a way of twisting themselves." Robert nodded slowly, processing the information. "And what happens after the 3 wishes?" "You just disappear." A flicker of something, longing, sadness, passed across Sophia's face. "I return to my bottle, awaiting the next summoner. It is the way of things." Robert frowned. The idea of trapping this fascinating being back in that tiny prison didn't sit right with him. "That sounds awful." Isn't there any way to free you? Sophia's eyes widened in surprise. You would consider such a thing? Most mortals think only of their own desires. Robert shrugged. It just doesn't seem fair to be stuck granting other people's wishes for eternity. You are unusual, Robert Miller, Sophia said, her voice softening. Wait, how do you know my name? A ghost of a smile played on Sophia's lips. I know many things about you. It is part of the bonding process between Jinn and Summoner. Robert felt a blush creep up his neck. That's a little unsettling. Sophia tilted her head. I apologize if I have caused discomfort. Perhaps we could talk. It has been a long time since I've engaged in conversation beyond wish negotiations. Robert hesitated, then nodded. Sure, why not? It's not like I had big plans for my Friday night anyway. He gestured to the small kitchen table. Can you sit? Sophia gracefully lowered herself into a chair, her form solidifying slightly as she did so. Robert sat across from her, acutely aware of how surreal the situation was. So. He began awkwardly, what's it like being a quantum djinn? Sophia's eyes lit up, quite literally, with swirling constellations. It is difficult to describe in terms your three-dimensional mind can comprehend. I exist simultaneously across multiple planes of reality, my essence woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. Robert blinked, trying to wrap his head around the concept. Maybe we could start with something simpler. How long have you been doing this genie thing? Sophia's brow furrowed in concentration. Time is fluid for beings such as myself. But in your linear perception, it would be millions of your Earth years, I believe. Robert whistled low. That's a long time. You must have seen some crazy wishes in all that time. A smile played at the corners of Sophia's mouth. Indeed. Mortals are endlessly creative in their desires, though often short-sighted in their execution. Any favorites? Robert found himself genuinely curious. Sophia's eyes took on a faraway look. There was a young pharaoh who wished for a monument that would stand for eternity. I may have over-delivered on that one. Robert's eyes widened. Wait, are you saying you built the pyramids? Sophia winked, a gesture that looked oddly charming on her otherworldly face. Let's just say I had a hand in their design. Robert leaned back in his chair, shaking his head in amazement. That's, wow. And here I am just trying to keep old Chevy's running. Sophia tilted her head, curious. You are a creator of sorts as well, are you not? I see images in your mind of broken machines brought back to life by your hands. Robert felt a flush of pride. I wouldn't go that far. I just fix things, make them work again when others have given up on them. A noble pursuit, Sophia said, her voice warm. The extension of usefulness, the preservation of function, these are not small things, Robert Miller. Robert rubbed the back of his neck, unused to such praise. Thanks, I guess. It's just not very exciting, you know. Same old cars, same old problems, day in and day out. Sophia leaned forward, her eyes intense. And is that why you hesitate to make a wish? You seek excitement, a break from the monotony of your existence. Robert started to deny it, but the words caught in his throat. Wasn't that exactly what he'd been feeling earlier, the suffocating sameness of his life in Millbrook? Maybe, he admitted. But I'm not sure a wish is the answer. Seems like a pretty big risk for a temporary thrill. Sophia nodded approvingly. Wisdom beyond your years, Robert Miller. Many have squandered their wishes on fleeting pleasures. Robert drummed his fingers on the table, thinking. So, if wishes are so tricky, why do it at all? Why grant them? Sophia's expression turned somber. It is complicated, a cosmic bargain struck eons ago, a pact that binds my kind to serve as conduits of possibility. We channel the raw energy of creation, shaping it to mortal will. She sighed, a sound like wind through crystal chimes. But the power, it can be intoxicating. Many of my kin have been corrupted by it, delighting in the chaos their twisted wishes sow. Robert frowned. That sounds awful. Is there no way to break the pact? Sophia's eyes widened in surprise. You would consider such a thing? Most mortals think only of how to exploit our power, not free us from it. Robert shrugged. It just doesn't seem right, being forced to grant wishes for eternity. Everyone deserves a choice. Sophia studied him intently, something unreadable flickering in her cosmic gaze. You are different, Robert Miller. Your compassion is unexpected. Robert felt heat rise to his cheeks under her scrutiny. I'm just a guy who fixes things. If I see something broken, I want to make it right. A ghost of a smile played on Sophia's lips. And you see my situation as something to be fixed. Robert ran a hand through his hair, suddenly flustered. I mean, if there was a way, yeah. But I'm guessing it's not that simple. Sophia's expression turned thoughtful. There is one way, but it is rarely invoked and comes with its own complexities. Robert leaned forward, intrigued. What is it? Sophia hesitated, then spoke carefully. If a jinn were to bind themselves in marriage to a mortal, the nature of the wish-granting would change. The spouse would have access to unlimited wishes, but the jinn would no longer be bound to their bottle or to cosmic law. Robert's eyes widened. Wait, marriage, as in actual marriage? Sophia nodded. It is a joining of essences, a merging of mortal and cosmic energies. It has happened only a handful of times in all of history. Robert's mind reeled with the implications. And what happens to the jinn? Do they become human? Sophia shook her head. Not precisely. We retain our powers, but they become tethered to our mortal spouse. It is a profound connection, beyond what your kind typically experiences in marriage. Robert stood up abruptly, pacing the small kitchen. That's a lot to take in. I mean, we just met, and you're talking about some kind of cosmic marriage. Sophia's eyes followed his movements, a hint of amusement in their depths. I merely explained the possibility, Robert Miller. I did not suggest we pursue it. Robert felt his face flush. Right, of course. I didn't mean to imply, I mean, you're beautiful and fascinating, but, he trailed off, mortified. Sophia's laughter filled the room, a sound like tinkling stardust. Your honesty is refreshing, Robert. Most mortals would have already proposed, seeking to exploit the loophole. Robert slumped back into his chair. I'm not most mortals, I guess. The idea of trapping you in a marriage just for wishes, it feels wrong. Sophia's expression softened. And that, Robert Miller, is why you are worthy of the power you now hold. Your compassion sets you apart. Robert met her gaze, struck by the depths of emotion he saw swirling in those cosmic eyes. So, what now? I still have 3 wishes, right? Sophia nodded. Indeed. The choice of how to use them remains yours. Robert took a deep breath. I think I need some time to think about it. This is all pretty overwhelming. Sophia inclined her head. A wise decision. Rushed wishes often lead to regret. As if on cue, a clock in the living room chimed midnight. Robert startled, realizing how much time had passed. Wow, I didn't realize how late it got. Sophia's form began to shimmer slightly. The witching hour approaches. I must return to my vessel soon. Robert felt a pang of disappointment. Do you have to? I mean, can't you just stay out? Sophia shook her head, a hint of sadness in her eyes. The cosmic laws bind me. Without an active wish or other arrangements, I am tethered to the bottle. Robert nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. I understand. Sophia smiled, the expression lighting up her entire being. You need only open the bottle, Robert Miller. I will always answer your call. As her form began to dissolve into mist, Robert felt a surge of panic. There was so much more he wanted to ask, to learn. Without thinking, he blurted out, "Wait, I wish for you to be my wife." The words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Sophia's eyes widened in shock, her form solidifying once more. "Robert, do you understand what you're asking?" Robert's heart raced. He hadn't meant to say it, hadn't even fully formed the thought, but now that it was out there. I think I do. It means you'd be free, right? And we'd be connected somehow." Sophia's expression was unreadable. "It is far more complex than that, Robert Miller. A binding beyond anything your kind typically experiences. Are you certain this is what you desire?" Robert's words hung in the air, charged with potential. Sophia's cosmic eyes searched his face, probing for any hint of deception or ulterior motive. Finding none, she exhaled softly, a sound like distant starlight. "Very well, Robert Miller," she said, her voice a mixture of wonder and trepidation. "By the power vested in me by the cosmic laws, I accept your proposal. We are now bound in marriage, for better or worse, across dimensions and timelines." A shimmering thread of energy materialized between them, connecting Robert's chest to Sophia's. It pulsed with an otherworldly light before fading from view, leaving behind a tingling warmth. Robert blinked, his mind reeling. "That's it? We're married?" Sophia's lips quirked in amusement. "Did you expect a more elaborate ceremony? I assure you, this binding is far more profound than any mortal union." "Right," Robert muttered, running a hand through his hair. "So, what now?" Sophia's form shimmered, solidifying into something more tangibly human-like. Her skin retained a faint blue luminescence but no longer glowed with celestial fire. "Now, Robert Miller, we navigate this new reality together. You have freed me from my bottle but bound me to yourself in the process. It is an adjustment." The days that followed were a kaleidoscope of discovery and adaptation for Robert and Sophia. Each morning, as milky sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of his modest apartment, Robert woke half expecting the extraordinary events of the previous night to dissolve into the realm of dreams. Yet, every time he opened his eyes, there she was, Sophia, perched on his worn sofa, surrounded by stacks of books on human customs, technology, and everything in between. Her ethereal presence transformed the cramped space into something almost magical, as if the mundane world had shifted its axis to accommodate her otherworldly essence. One evening, as the hum of the refrigerator provided a steady backdrop to their shared solitude, Sophia paused her reading to remark on a peculiar aspect of human entertainment. "I fail to understand the appeal of this reality television," she said, her brow furrowed as she watched a group of glamorous women bicker on screen. "Is conflict truly so entertaining to your kind?" Robert chuckled, settling beside her with a bowl of popcorn. "It's not exactly high art, but sometimes it's fun to watch other people's drama instead of dealing with your own." Sophia tilted her head, considering. "An intriguing coping mechanism, though I find your own life far more compelling than these artificial scenarios." Heat rose to Robert's cheeks, as it often did when Sophia directed her frank observations his way. Even after days in her presence, her candidness still caught him off guard. "Well, my life's gotten a lot more interesting lately, that's for sure," he admitted. Sophia's lips curved in a small smile. "Indeed. I must admit, I had not anticipated the complexity of human existence. Your world is simultaneously more mundane and more fascinating than I had imagined." Their evenings became a tapestry of shared learning. Robert introduced Sophia to the basics of cooking, marveling at her ability to perfectly replicate recipes after a single viewing. In return, she regaled him with tales of distant galaxies and long-extinct civilizations. One balmy night, as they prepared dinner together, Robert couldn't help but ask incredulously, "You mean to tell me you were there when they built Stonehenge?" Sophia nodded absently, chopping vegetables with precision that bordered on supernatural. Indeed, though I must say the purpose was far less mystical than your historians theorize. It was primarily a gathering place for interstellar merchants. Robert shook his head, grinning. You know, a month ago, I would have thought you were crazy. Now, I'm not sure anything could surprise me. Sophia's eyes sparkled with mischief. Is that a challenge, Robert Miller? Before he could respond, Sophia waved her hand, and the kitchen walls melted away to reveal a vast alien landscape. Purple grass swayed beneath twin moons, and creatures that defied description soared through a green sky. Robert gasped, nearly dropping the pan he was holding. Holy! Spare your quaint Midwestern sensibilities, dear husband, Sophia teased, returning the kitchen to normal with another gesture. I wouldn't want to corrupt them. As the weeks unfolded, Robert found himself increasingly captivated by Sophia. Her childlike wonder at human experiences was endearing, but it was her ancient wisdom and quick wit that truly drew him in. He began to look forward to their evening conversations, picking her brilliant mind on everything from philosophy to quantum mechanics. One balmy night, inspired by the beauty of the summer sky, Robert suggested they climb up to the roof of his apartment building. Sophia's eyes lit up at the idea, and soon they were settled on a warm blanket, gazing up at the star-studded sky. It's beautiful, Robert murmured, his eyes fixed on the glittering expanse above. But I bet it's nothing compared to what you've seen out there. Sophia was quiet for a moment, her expression thoughtful. Beauty is relative, Robert. I have witnessed the birth and death of stars, seen galaxies collide in cosmic ballets. But there is a unique charm to viewing the universe from this perspective, limited, yet full of wonder. Robert turned to look at her, struck by the play of starlight on her ethereal features. Do you miss it? Being out there, I mean. Sophia met his gaze, her eyes swirling with unreadable emotions. I am not certain. My existence before was vast but often lonely. This new life, bound to earth and to you, it is more constrained, yet somehow fuller. Robert's heart raced at her words. He reached out hesitantly, taking her hand. Sophia's fingers intertwined with his, a current of energy passing between them. Sophia, he began, his voice thick with emotion, I know this whole situation is crazy. We barely know each other, and I'm just a small-town mechanic. But I think I'm falling in love with you. Sophia's eyes widened, a cascade of shooting stars seeming to dance within their depths. Robert Miller, she whispered, I have existed for eons, observed countless lives and loves, yet I find myself experiencing emotions I cannot fully comprehend. Is this what your mind calls love? Robert nodded, unable to find words. Sophia leaned in, her lips brushing his in a kiss that sent shockwaves through his entire being. For a moment, Robert felt as if he could see the entire universe, countless realities stretching out before him. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. Wow, Robert managed, his mind spinning. That was indeed, Sophia agreed, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. It seems there is still much for both of us to discover. As they lay back on the blanket, hands still intertwined, Robert felt a sense of contentment he'd never known before. The quiet rhythms of small-town life, which had once felt stifling, now seemed peaceful, enriched by Sophia's presence. For the first time, Millbrook's predictability felt less like a trap and more like a canvas upon which they could paint their unconventional story. Together, they were navigating a reality that blurred the lines between the ordinary and the extraordinary, finding beauty in the mundane and wonder in the everyday. Their bond, forged in the crucible of cosmic forces, was becoming something uniquely human, and infinitely precious. The tranquil rhythm of Robert and Sophia's life together was shattered one fateful morning when the sound of commotion outside pierced through their peaceful routine. Startled, Robert stumbled to the window, Sophia close behind him. Below, a black van was parked haphazardly across the street, its nondescript exterior betraying the tension radiating from the scene. Men in dark suits moved methodically, questioning neighbors with an air of calculated precision. Their presence felt invasive, like a storm cloud rolling in to disrupt the calm skies of Millbrook. "Oh no," Sophia breathed, her form shimmering faintly as agitation coursed through her. "They found us." Robert's brow furrowed as he scanned the scene below. "Who? What's going on?" Sophia's expression hardened, her once ethereal features now shadowed with concern. "Your government has detected my energy signature. I had hoped the binding of our marriage would mask it, but it seems I underestimated their technology." Robert's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of her explanation. "But they don't know about you specifically, right? We can just say it was some weird power surge or something." Sophia shook her head, her voice weighted with urgency. "I'm afraid it's not that simple. My presence on this planet violates numerous interstellar treaties. If they discover what I am," she trailed off, her luminous eyes filling with a fear that Robert had never seen before. Determination flooded through Robert, hardening his resolve. "Then we won't let them find out. You're my wife now, Sophia. I promise to protect you, and that's exactly what I'm going to do." Sophia's eyes shimmered, not with her usual celestial glow but with raw emotion. "Ed, you don't understand the forces you'd be going up against. These aren't just human agencies. There are cosmic entities that would seek to reclaim me, to enforce the old laws." Robert tightened his grip on her hands, meeting her gaze with unwavering steadiness. "I don't care if we have to face down the entire universe. I'm not letting anyone take you away." Before they could formulate a plan, a sharp knock at the door interrupted their tense exchange. A stern voice called out, "Mr. Miller, this is Agent Carter with the Department of Energy. We need to ask you a few questions about some unusual readings in the area." Robert and Sophia exchanged a panicked glance. Time had run out. Summoning as much composure as he could muster, Robert called out, "Just a minute." He turned to Sophia, speaking in an urgent whisper. "Can you make yourself invisible or something?" Sophia shook her head, her voice barely audible. "Not without expending energy they would surely detect." "Edward," she began, her tone grave, "perhaps it would be best if I—" "No," Robert cut her off firmly. "We're in this together. Just follow my lead, okay?" Sophia nodded, her form shimmering slightly as she adjusted her appearance to look more conventionally human. The ethereal glow of her skin dimmed, and her hair settled into a more earthly shade of blonde. Robert took a deep breath, steeling himself, and opened the door. Two men in crisp suits stood in the hallway, their expressions impassive. The taller of the two stepped forward, introducing himself. "Mr. Miller, I'm Agent Carter, and this is my colleague, Agent Thompson. May we come in?" Forcing a polite smile, Robert stepped aside. "Of course. What's this all about?" The agents entered, their eyes immediately locking onto Sophia. Agent Carter's eyebrow raised fractionally. "I don't believe we've met, Miss." "Mrs. Miller," Sophia corrected smoothly, her voice steady despite the tension crackling in the air. "I'm Edward's wife." Agent Thompson consulted a tablet, his expression unreadable. "Interesting. Our records don't show any marriage license filed for Mr. Miller in the last, well, ever." Robert's heart raced, but he kept his composure. "We, eloped. It was all very sudden." Agent Carter's eyes narrowed skeptically. "I see. And when exactly did this whirlwind romance occur?" 2 weeks ago, Robert said, the lie slipping easily from his tongue. "Last month," Sophia answered simultaneously, her voice betraying a flicker of hesitation. The agents exchanged a glance, their skepticism palpable. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller," Agent Carter said, his voice dripping with doubt, "I'm going to need you both to come with us for some questioning. We've detected some highly unusual energy readings coming from this building, and your stories don't quite add up." Panic surged through Robert, but he forced himself to remain calm. He glanced at Sophia, seeing the fear in her eyes, and in that moment, he made a decision. Squaring his shoulders, he addressed the agents. All right. You want the truth? Here it is. Turning to Sophia, he declared, I wish for you to be free, truly, completely free, without any cosmic laws or obligations binding you. Sophia's eyes widened in shock. Edward, no. You don't know what you're doing. But it was too late. The air crackled with energy, and Sophia's form began to glow with an intensity that forced everyone to shield their eyes. When the light faded, she stood transformed. Gone was any pretense of humanity. She hovered several inches off the ground, her skin a swirling map of galaxies, her hair cascading like starlight. The agent stumbled back, reaching for weapons that suddenly seemed woefully inadequate. What are you? Agent Carter stammered, his voice trembling. Sophia's voice resonated with power, echoing as if it carried the weight of the cosmos itself. I am a being beyond your comprehension, mortal. And thanks to Edward Miller, I am now unbound by any laws save those of my own choosing. She turned to Robert, her expression softening. You have given me a gift beyond measure, my love. But I'm afraid the consequences of this wish are far greater than you could have imagined. As if on cue, the sky outside darkened, and unearthly lights began to dance across the heavens. A low, ominous thrumming filled the air. Sophia's eyes met Robert's, filled with a mixture of love and sorrow. They're coming. The cosmic enforcers, drawn by the disturbance in the universal balance. Edward, I. Before she could finish, a blinding light engulfed them all. Robert felt himself being pulled apart at the atomic level, his consciousness expanding to encompass realities he could never have imagined. The last thing he heard before everything went white was Sophia's voice echoing across dimensions, Hold on, my love. Our journey is only beginning. The blinding light faded, leaving Robert disoriented and gasping for breath. His vision cleared slowly, revealing a landscape that defied comprehension. Swirling nebulae stretched as far as the eye could see, punctuated by floating islands of impossible geometry. Robert's mind reeled, struggling to process the alien environment. Sophia, he called out, his voice echoing strangely in the cosmic expanse. Where are you? A familiar warmth enveloped him, and Sophia materialized beside him. Her form was even more ethereal here, her body composed of shimmering stardust and pulsing energy. I'm here, Edward, she said, her voice resonating on multiple frequencies. We've been transported to the Nexus, a realm between realities. The cosmic enforcers will arrive soon. Edward's head spun. Cosmic enforcers? Sophia, what's going on? What have I done? Sophia's expression was a mixture of love and concern. By freeing me completely, you've disrupted the balance of the universe. The enforcers are coming to restore order and to punish those responsible. Before Edward could respond, the air crackled with energy. 5 imposing figures materialized around them, each radiating power beyond mortal comprehension. Their forms shifted constantly, as if unable to settle on a single shape. The largest of the enforcers spoke, its voice booming across dimensions. Sophia, quantum djinn of the STH realm, you stand accused of violating the cosmic compact. And you, Edward Miller of Earth, are charged with aiding and abetting this violation. How do you plead? Edward straightened his spine, facing the cosmic being with a courage he didn't entirely feel. Not guilty. I love Sophia, and I won't apologize for setting her free. The enforcer's form pulsed with barely contained fury. Love? You speak of love when you've endangered the very fabric of reality? Sophia intertwined her fingers with Edward's, a gesture of defiance and unity. Your laws are outdated and cruel. I found something more powerful than any cosmic compact, true connection with another being. The enforcers conferred in a language beyond human comprehension. Finally, the leader turned back to them. We cannot allow this disruption to stand. The balance must be restored. Sophia, you will be stripped of your powers and banished to a mortal existence. Edward Miller, you will forget all knowledge of cosmic truths and return to your mundane life. No. Edward shouted, pulling Sophia closer. You can't do this. There has to be another way. A smaller enforcer stepped forward, its form reminiscent of a shimmering humanoid. Perhaps there is an alternative. If you truly believe your love is strong enough to transcend cosmic law, prove it. How? Sophia asked, hope coloring her voice. The enforcer waved a hand, and a series of shimmering portals appeared. These gateways lead to different realities, each fraught with its own challenges. If you can navigate them together, maintaining your bond despite having your memories altered, we will consider your case unique. Edward met Sophia's gaze, seeing the determination mirrored in her eyes. We'll do it, he said firmly. The lead enforcer nodded gravely. Very well, but be warned, this trial will test you in ways you cannot imagine. Failure means permanent separation and the erasure of all you've shared. Before Edward could respond, he felt himself being pulled into the nearest portal. Sophia's hand slipped from his grasp as reality twisted and warped around them. Edward blinked, finding himself standing in a grimy alleyway. The acrid smell of pollution filled his nostrils, and neon signs flickered overhead. He wore a battered trench coat, and a futuristic gun hung at his hip. Hey, Paul, a gruff voice called. We got a lead on that alien fugitive. You coming, or what? Edward's head throbbed as conflicting memories battled for dominance. He was a small-town mechanic, or was he? No, he was a hardened detective in a cyberpunk metropolis, and he was searching for someone important. A woman with starlight in her hair. Shaking off the confusion, Edward followed his partner. Something told him this case was more than just another alien roundup. He had to find her, whoever she was. Everything depended on it. Across the city, in a dingy apartment, Sophia awoke with a start. Her once cosmic form was now undeniably human, complete with scars and cybernetic implants. She flexed her mechanical fingers, trying to remember how she had come by them. A news broadcast caught her attention. Authorities continue the manhunt for the dangerous alien shapeshifter. Citizens are advised to report any suspicious activity. Sophia's heart raced. She was the shapeshifter. She realized this with startling clarity. And there was someone she needed to find before the authorities did, a man with kind eyes and a gentle touch. As Edward and Sophia navigated the neon-drenched streets, their paths drawing ever closer, neither fully remembered their cosmic love. But something deeper than memory pulled them together, a bond that transcended time, space, and even identity. Days passed in a blur of investigation and near misses. Edward found himself questioning his mission, doubt gnawing at him each time he glimpsed a woman with impossibly bright eyes or heard a laugh that sent shivers down his spine. Finally, in a rain-soaked confrontation on a rooftop, Edward came face to face with the alien fugitive. Sophia stood before him, her cybernetic arm raised in defense, her eyes a swirling mix of fear and recognition. Do I know you? Edward asked.